Hyliel. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 322 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Wednesday, December 15th in the evening. From Gadgetan, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, we've got Botticus.
Yo.
And from Nomergon, Ohio, we've got Edelweiss.
Hello.
And from where you are, listener, we've got you. Good to talk to you again so soon. And thank you to all of our patrons. You're all great. And all of our people who leave us reviews. Thank you so much for your feedback. Really appreciate it. And really helps other people find the show. We are recording on Wednesday and not Thursday because tomorrow Spider-Man is going to swing into my life in a major way. If you hear dread rumbling in my voice throughout the episode, it is from Spider-Man. Not him specifically, he seems like a nice guy, is going to be there to save the world, but the people that want to observe him in action are very excited to do so at my movie theater, which, for those keeping track at home, is in New York City, and, that whole Omicron variant thing, kind of a bummer, kind of not great, got my booster shot, so, that's cool, but I'm a little nervous. Also, gonna be busy. Sold out every show through, Saturday, so, yeah. So instead of recording tonight, because my co-hosts are flexible, wonderful people, and there's still plenty to talk about here on Fractured for Alterac Valley. So why don't we start? Edelweiss, what you been doing?
I've been playing a whole lot of Shudderwock Shaman, or I guess Yashiraj Shaman. But it feels kind of like Shudderwock Shaman, if I'm honest.
It's the Bolner OTK. It totally is Shudderwock, right? I actually think this version wins with the combo even less than Shudderwock used to. You win with Snowfall Guardians a lot.
Oh yeah, there are plenty of times where I go into an opposing wide board, Bolner, Lightning Bloom, Snowfall Guardian, go, and then I have a follow-up Brilliant Macaw for another freeze. And then I just hit him with big things. The ways that you get to utilize Bolner in the deck are really interesting, and there's so much capacity for freeze. I never thought we would have this kind of freeze in Shaman. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's the kind of freeze we always talk about as being dangerous, which is, I'm going to make a large thing. Well, I freeze your entire board, and then I'm going to keep freezing your entire board and kill you with my large minions.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
And Shaman has a lot to do right now, and I like that, but most of those things involve Snowfall Guardian, and I like that a little less. Wind Chill and Sleep Breaker are just good cards. They're less offensive to me because a targeted freeze here or there, okay. Snowfall Guardian will just, Guardian into Macaw is a little silly sometimes. You get punished so hard for playing minions, so I am less sure about that play pattern. It's not oppressive in terms of win rate. I've been playing some of that Bolner OTK deck too, and you do all sorts of stuff. And yeah, Bolner is. Remember how pre-Stormwind, Bolner was the must-craft legendary of the set, and then Stormwind comes out, overrated garbage. Don't make him in a million years. And now here we are in Alterac. Bolner is the must-craft legendary of Stormwind. We got there. Took a minute, but I beat a Garrote Rogue by going Bolner Vanndar Macaw and armoring out of range. You can do Mutinous into Bolner Macaws, also excellent against decks that against Owl, you just eat all their stuff. Against Mozaki, I played against Gia. Poor Gia. I whiffed on a Mutinous, and then she cast Refreshing Springwater and refreshed 0 crystals. So Bolner Macaw, chomp chomp. By Mozaki. It's just, you can do all sorts of that stuff there. And one of the many angles with which you can attack combo decks in this format while also being a combo deck. It's kind of fun.
Something that didn't occur to me about Armor Vendor, I was just thinking of it as fine defensive card. but I sort of forgot that you can utilize cheap battle cries very well with Bolner, since you don't have to have it repeat its own. Like, yeah, you can take advantage of it to gain extra armor out of Garorok, fine. But you could also do things like Bolner, Snowfall Guardian, Armor Vendor, if you like really want to juice up the Bolner, because it'll still repeat that first battle cry. And something I always forget that's kind of takes a minute for me to realize why it's doing what it's doing. But if you go Mutinous, and then the next turn you go Bolner, Macaw, that works. But if you play something after the Macaw, it repeats the Macaw's battle cry. So it's effectively just a Bran that turn, because Macaw always has the last battle cry you played. So if...
It's the way that card works with Bolner are really fiddly. The Macawnics of how that interaction goes. Yeah, we're getting started early, Bodicus. Make peace with it. This is happening. He's in physical pain right now. I've done my job.
Yeah, the long and short of it for describing that is basically if you play Macaw as your first battle cry in a turn while you have Bolner, you have a Bran in play, not Bolner. It is effectively Bran. That's
just doubles whatever you play. Yep, and because it's really hard to keep track of during a game. I wish HSR, the Hearthstone Deck Tracker, figures out a way to just give me something to hover over, like what was the last battle cry I played, because my memory lasts about 12 seconds. So like if I have to think all the way back to like last turn, I have no clue what happened last turn, unless it was a Snowfall Guardian. Then I know, because all the minions are frozen. I know that one. If all the minions are blue, then I know what Macaw does. Unless I mess up and play it in the wrong order, which I have done many times.
Have you Macawed a hero Brucon by accident because you didn't realize it's last battle cry played, not last minion battle cry played?
I think I
did that a lot to kill my opponents.
Yeah,
I do that a lot. I like to play many Macaws.
Yes,
like
and fireballs. Fireballs are good. I like those.
Brucon into Bolner Macaw is
just like a bunch of stuff happens.
Can be pretty game winning.
Yeah. It's you've been playing all these shaman decks too? There's so many shaman decks.
I have not played the OTK shaman decks. I have not played a ton of Hearthstone, but that of which I have played, and now I'm getting the repeating thing, freaking hat.
I wasn't even talking. I wasn't even talking.
What I have played is the deck that has a bit more of a higher win rate, which is just the normal freeze shaman deck. And I was going to say that deck is pretty cool, but then I know Hat would call me out on it. So that deck is okay. I don't know. It's not like super enjoyable to play, but it is decent and it wins games. And I do like winning games. And just the Wild Pot Caverns, I think is the name of the card.
Yeah.
That card is just so good.
It's gross. When you bloom it out on one, do people just leave whenever when you
I don't play Bloom.
Oh.
My deck does not play Bloom.
Interesting.
But the oh god, this is gonna piss me off. the repeating voice is gonna make me mad. The thing that I actually would like to track, because I don't have a problem tracking Macaw at all, it's Multicaster, or whatever that card is. Is that what it's called? The
yes.
3/4 that draws a bunch of cards. I wish there was a way to track how many cards I'm going to draw with that card.
That would be nice.
Because that would be helpful to know. I usually just play it, and it usually draws me 2 cards, but even sometimes when it draws me 1 card, it's okay. But yeah, I mean, Wild Pot Cavern is just like, the first 3-4, you're like, this is actually not the worst deal. And then the second one comes out, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is helping me catch up, because I spent no mana to cast the second 3-4 that freezes something. And then the third one comes out, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, this card is so good. This card is just like so much value, and the pressure it applies for the amount of mana it costs. I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see mana get increased just by a little bit, mainly because of the interaction with like playing it on turn 1. I think that's a little aggressive to have that come out, even though you're spending a bit of resources to make sure it comes out. But yeah, overall that card is just I basically always keep that card in every matchup, just because it's just something your opponent has to deal with a 3/4 every turn for 3 turns on top of whatever you're doing, and it also interacts so well with the 5-drop, because 5-drop freezes all their stuff, and then you get the 3/4 afterwards, so you get to attack with it, and then yeah, it's just the deck gets out of control real quick.
Yeah, it's Cheaty Snowbolt is so much damage just out of nowhere all the time.
Oh man, God, Cheaty Snowballed and wind chilling things is just the greatest feeling. It's like the Magic the Gathering feeling of just like getting all this little bits of value over the course of the game. You're like, okay, play this thing that draws a card and kills a thing. All right, now, or when you combine it with Snowfall Guardian and just their entire board, instead of just being frozen for a turn, it just wipes their entire board, and it doesn't affect any of your minions if it's freezing your own minions. It's just so good.
Yeah, I have not been playing as much Wildpaw Cavern because I have a very like nature spell focus, with the exception of the 2 wind chills for my combo deck. But I do occasionally have hand size issues anyways, so maybe it's just worth it to put in Wildpaw Cavern. So in the matchups where I do want to have some pressure, that could be helpful there. And Note Taker is in my deck as well, and the thought of maybe going like Note Taker, Wildpaw Cavern, and then doing another one and just having this steady stream of pressure, it's kind of interesting.
I will say the second Wildpaw Caverns is pretty bad when you have them at the same time, only because it feels like you can just feel the weight of how long it takes for it to not be a thing. Like for it to not be active against you, and you're usually either winning like super far ahead at that point, or you're so far behind that playing the second one doesn't really help catch you up. It's kind of it feels like a very rare situation where we're at parity and just like playing the second one 4 turns later, because you can't like play it the turn it's about to come off cooldown or come off.
Oh, I forgot you can't have them simultaneous. That gets a lot worse then.
Yeah, so the second one's definitely not as good as the first one, but the first one, just slamming it on turn 3 or 4, for me is just, it's so much that your opponent has to deal with, because after the first turn, they have to spend mana to deal with the thing that you spent no mana on top of whatever you got to spend your mana on. So it like kind of reserves a whole bunch of mana.
Yeah. Well, and I'm perfectly happy to just use Note Taker on Wind Chill, which is basically what it's there for anyway. You get a crazy amount of cycle being able to have 6 Wind Chills from, you're running 2, you've got 2 Note Takers, and you've got 2 Sleep Breakers. Pretty solid.
I will say, did either of you play the Tavern Brawl this last week? Because
No.
I built Freeze Shaman in the Tavern Brawl, which is just commons, rares, and basic cards. No epics or whatever. And I got to play Spirit of the Frog with Wind Chill. Oh boy. Spirit of the Frog and Wind Chill is some good. It's real good.
The biggest issue there is that you can only have 10 cards in hand.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I would just wait till I had Spirit of the Frog, and then you go Lightning Bloom, Wind Chill, and the other 2 mana Frost spell that makes their stuff cost 2 more. If you honorable kill, and your hand is completely full and they can't do anything for the rest of the game, basically.
Well, I've been playing these decks and other decks because Hearthstone has a lot right now. I'm trying not to turn this into a Decksplanations, but I'm trying to think of the classes I haven't played. Warrior, Paladin, And Paladin's really good. I just don't want to play it.
I'm sure you've played enough against enough paladins to
Not
make
that
it
many.
feel like you've played it. Really?
Not
That's
that many.
surprising.
Yeah, it's so like my top 200 gatekeeper. I keep bouncing off top 200 with whatever I'm playing because someone's just like, oh, I'm just gonna play Garrote Rogue, and then whatever you want to do is just not a thing. And I made a tweet about this today. I'm pretty ready for Octobot to cost more than 2. I underestimated the card. I thought it was good. Boticus thought it was great. It's better than that. I was playing out Aggro Taunt Druid. Last expansion plus a couple of new cards. Drekthar, But still running Razor Mains, whatever. I went Battle Guard Mule on 2. The Battle Guard stuck. And then I went Oracle Taunt on 3. I had 5 minions in play. It was turn 3. They killed all 5. All 5 by playing 8 mana worth of stuff, including a secret passage.
Oof.
Like they played, I think it was 7 or 8 cards, 8 mana worth of stuff. Penflinger, multiple Og Merchants, and then 0 mana secret passage into Plunderer, Step Plunderer. And killed all 5 of my minions with spot removal on turn 3. And they had used the coin already. I don't know. Just wasn't what I wanted to happen to me. But I've been doing well with all sorts of stuff. I can almost go class by class. Demon Hunter.
It almost sounds like cards that shouldn't be able to be reduced to 0 mana should not be able to be reduced to 0 mana.
It's Octobot in... I understand where you're going with that. I'm not going to say that you're wrong at a point. I think it's a tuning issue, not a design issue, because I'm cool with 0 mana cards, but Garrote doesn't have to run expensive cards anymore. In Barons...
Well, no, there should be 0 mana cards, but it's the cards that shouldn't be able to be reduced to 0 is what I'm arguing, right? So Octobot should be able to reduce all the cards in your hand by 1, but no less than 1, right? Or like it reduces them by 1, but all the 1 mana cards should not cost 0 because that causes issues.
If Octobot costs way more mana, like if Octobot costs more, was less efficient to use, it wouldn't matter, right? Because later in the game, maybe you can get away with that sort of thing. Or if it's like Barons, and the deck has to win by playing Kazakus and Jandis and Alex, right? Octo is reducing such a smaller percentage of your cards from 1 to 0 because you need to play expensive cards, and it's still good, but 1 to 0 when your entire deck is 1 mana cards that draw you another card is a little sketchy. So, I don't know. I understand where you're going with that. I do think that there's a tuning issue there, and part of it as well as the fact that Rogue doesn't need to play expensive cards to win means that Octo is just so much better because all of your cards get reduced by such a larger percentage of their base cost. Up to and including 100% of set cost.
Yeah, I keep coming around more and more on the Boticus agenda. Rune Mithril Rod and Octobot could be fine if they just said, but no less than 1.
Yeah, or
They
if
could
they
still
were
honestly,
enable
some
yeah.
other one.
combos, but not quite as ridiculous turns.
Yeah, I honestly think like the cards are actually probably costed fine. Just don't make cards that cost 1 cost 0 because there are a lot of very powerful 1 mana cards. And when you can play 10 cards in a turn because all your 1 mana cards cost 0 and they all cycle and draw more cards, then you probably have an issue there. But I mean, they'll probably just end up increasing the cost as what they usually do with stuff like that, and we'll keep having this problem when they keep making more cards that reduce the cost of cards that shouldn't be reduced to 0.
Yeah. I mean, and
There are cards like Librams, though. Librams should be able to cost 0, and I think they're fine costing 0 because they're a card that was built for that specific purpose. Or like, the what's that 4 mana card, right? In the new set that costs 1 less for each card you've played before it. That
Frostwolf War Master, yeah.
Yeah, its inherent like key trait is that it can cost 0 if you jump through these hoops. But it's all these other. It's when you. I mean, I hate to say it, but Shadow Step, I mean, I love Shadow Step. I don't want it to get changed, but that's been one of the leading causes of like a lot of issues. or for a lot of people, is when you reduce some like sometimes you reduce cards that cost 2 down to 0, and then they, it becomes too good.
It's unrestricted discounts. Because, like, when you discount Librams, you're discounting specific restricted cards. When you discount spells that cost X or more or less or whatever, then fine. Even just saying spells. But when you can just make whatever you want, cost whatever you want, then yeah, there can be some problems there. And I don't even know if Garrote is a problem. I just know that I liked having minions and then they killed them all on turn 3, and I was displeased by this outcome. But, I also don't think maybe it was a great idea to give Rogue a free prep every turn, plus armor gain, plus a vanish, plus some chip damage. That's also quite good in Garrote Rogue, where, like, I'll stick a board and be like, I got him now, and they're like, hey, scabs. Also, hero power Octo, go. Yeah.
Well, that's the other problem, right? Because it stacks. Because it's not just the 1 mana cards getting reduced to 0. Sometimes you get 2 Octobots and the 2 mana cards all of a sudden cost 0. And that causes a whole nother problem where, like, normally the 2 mana cards, sometimes when they cost 1 is probably okay. But with Rune Mithril Rod or with Octobot, sometimes you get 2 of them, or Rune Mithril Rod has 2 charges. It's going to reduce these 2 mana cards to 0 mana. And then it's the same issue all over again. But if they couldn't stack and the minimum reduction was down to 1, I think they'd have to balance it less. But that's just like a theory.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if it's a problem, but I do know that I've been thinking about it since you mentioned it, and I got blown out by Octo on 2 today, and then they played a bunch of stuff, and I was like, okay, I get it now. However, I will now discuss all the other decks I have been playing, many of which include mana discounting. So, let's go! The Kurtrus hero card in Demon Hunter is gross and insane, even without Deadeye Expendable Performers, the Kurt combo. Even with just Deadeye, it's a lot of damage. Even without either of those, just a lot of damage. But also there's some Fel DH going around. The one that I got was from Draco Cat, where you are Fel DH with Felfire Expendables, and it's quite good. Been doing really well at that. Had a really great game against an Owl TK, where they played around my Expendable combo by clearing all of their own minions, so I just played Jason, killed them, because the Fel Barrages all went face. Nice deck. It's very fun. Drew had been trying out the Drekthar Aggro Druid, but then whenever I played, I get destroyed by all the efficient removal in the format, but I still think that it's quite good. Hunter. Big Hunter. Big. Huge. Vanndar. Play Vanndar. If you have not cast a Wing Commander Ikman, you owe it to yourself to play a Wing Commander Ikman. I thought the deck was a joke and a meme, and it's actually not. You can't beat Garrote Rogue ever. Like, literally ever one time, no matter what you do. My opponent played a Contact and Augmerchant and said, go. And I'm just like, well, that's living for 3 turns. I looked at my hands like, that's living for 3 turns, so I'm just gonna dip. But you can beat, like, Handlock. You're really good against alignment. And sometimes you just get to bring back a King Crush and kill him. Like, I think there's actually something there. I think there's actually really, really something there. The early game is questionable, and yes, you will get blown up by aggressive decks, and yes, you will lose to Garrote Rogue, but there have been matches that I've won that I didn't really think that I had any business winning. Mage, Paladin, haven't been playing any. Priest, a little bit of Trog. Rogue. Maester Rogue with Secrets is super fun. Maester Rogue in general. Quest Rogue's still really good. You can still play that, just put in scabs. But Maester Rogue, super fun. I've been playing a list with Secrets and Contraband Stashes and all that. Had a wonderful game today where I was against a Shaman, and very early in the game, my Wand Thief showed me Shattering Blast, which reads 3 mana, destroy all frozen minions. And my opponent was on Shaman, and they had played a Wand Maker on 2. I'm like, am I going to get Bolner Macaw? So they went Guardian to Bolner Macaw, and then they played Shattering Blast, and then your opponent left. So it destroyed their entire massive board. It was very enjoyable. I like that. But the deck is good. I just did a session with Beast Squatch, and we went 8-0 to get to Legend. Real good. Keep tradable cards, then trade them. If it's Rustrod Viper, your opponent won't know that you're a rogue. If it's Blackwater Cutlass, they'll probably figure it out pretty quick, but it won't break the disguise. But your Knoll still costs 0, who cares? Yeah, Rogue's great. Shaman, I think Shaman is the best design class in Standard right now, even though Snowfall Guardian is a very powerful card, but, like, there are a lot of really viable Shaman strategies, and none of them are oppressive, which I've been very impressed by. Like, they all play Sleepbreaker now. Everything plays Sleepbreaker, but, like, that's cool. It's a good card. And Bolner is everywhere, and Macaw is everywhere, but, like, you can OTK people, you can Doomhammer people, you can cheat Snowbolt people, you can do whatever. There's a lot of... You can quest. You can still quest. Quest is good. I'm playing some of that. It's fun. There's a burn shaman list going around that my buddy Aqua made, and I killed from 19 because you get to... When you go Note Taker, Bloom, 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 and you end that turn with an Overdraft after playing a Guild Trader and a Novice Zapper, I haven't done the math offhand, but they died, and it was a lot. So you can do all sorts of stuff now. Shaman. Warlock. Handlock's good. Owl TK, I played some of it. Kind of boring, but alright. But Handlock, still good. And you play Full-Blown Evil as a great card. The Echoing Dark Skies, really, really great. I was turn 9, and my opponent had a 9/10 Devout Pupil, the taunty bubbly dude. And a 3/4 Samuro. So just Full-Blown Evil, Full-Blown Evil, Full-Blown Evil, they're all dead. Just play the same card 3 times, and then all that stuff died. You can just do all sorts of stuff. So, and Warrior, I haven't... Whenever I've been playing Warrior, it turns out I was Rogue. But there's just a lot of stuff going on, and I filled my deck slots and emptied them and filled them again, and I've been surprised at the variety that I found in Standard so far.
Who knew that Freeze Shaman was the key to making a balanced Shaman deck? They just had to make actual good Freeze Shaman cards and not just Morabi. Who knew? Yeah.
And even if they nudge Snowfall to 6, I don't think a single deck stops playing it. So, like, they can keep it competitive. I'm just happy that they managed to actually get a win with Shaman so far. Since Wailing Caverns, they've been doing a really great job with the class this year. Yeah, so that was all Life and Ladder. Oh yeah, also Spider-Man's about to destroy my life. I mentioned that earlier, but so if I sound tired in next week's recording, that's why. All right. Should we go to news?
Did I cut you off of your Life and Ladder? I feel like
I forget.
I feel like
that
I
might
started
have happened.
talking about mine. Did you get to go through everything you wanted to talk about?
I've been playing Shaman. Occasionally some Katana Zero.
Good game. Yes. All right. Should we go to news? Should we do that?
Let's do news. Yeah.
Okay.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So the community has spoken, and the Hearthstone team has listened and came up with a solution for the Vanndar Drekthar dust refunds. The post says, although these cards do not meet the circumstances we normally use to apply refund logic, we have heard your feedback that an exception in this instance will make for a better play experience for many players. The decision to add this refund logic was finalized after the hotfix was put together, so the refund period has not been enabled yet. We will update our messaging once the refund period has started. After that refund period goes live, players who already disenchanted Drekthar or Vanndar will automatically receive additional dust to make up for not receiving their full value. I mean, that was... Until that last, little sentence there, it was, slightly worrying, and then they just kind of feels like they solved all the problems with this issue that I don't know was a huge issue to begin with, but enough people spoke out about it, and it sounds like they listened. And overall, I'm pretty happy with the solution. What do you two think?
We're supposed to have drama to talk about for the next 2 weeks. What are we going to do now? They turned off the drama. They nerfed it. They don't normally balance this fast.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would have been fine with a defense of why, but I was always on team, hey, it's a real decision, and it's cool that the decision matters. But who can be well, I shouldn't say who can be unhappy with this. Of course, people can be unhappy with this, but they did the thing that will make the most people happy, which is just like, hey, free refund.
The people who are unhappy now are the ones that ground out the 7200 honor before opening a single pack. Because now it turns out that was a bad decision. Who could have seen that at the time? But now it's just explicit it's a bad decision, even though it was technically optimal before. Celestalon actually made a very long thread about this. I'm going to attempt to read it in a way that produces meaningful content, but like I think it was so many tweets. I don't know. I tried to bullet point it, and it's still like 5 paragraphs. So I'm just gonna charge in here. This is a quote from Celestalon. I wanted to take a moment to share our thoughts behind the dust refunds on Drek and Vann. The main point of dust refunds has historically been to handle nerfs. You can safely craft a card without fearing that it'll get nerfed and you've wasted your investment. Another situation started coming up in Barons. We wanted to have specific cards in the rewards track, but some were openable right away at level 1. They were valuable legendary cards. Posed a problem. If you opened your packs before claiming the card in the rewards track, you would waste it. Only solution that we came up with was the full dust refund at launch thing. We didn't like it, because people had to be aware of it, and it actually reversed the problem where it made it better to open the packs first, but we had no other viable options, so this is what we did for Barons, planned to solve it in a better way for Stormwind, didn't figure it out in time, did it there too, and did it again for Alterac. The point of these dust refund at launch cases has always been to handle the launch day where you could do things in the wrong order immediately on launch. Didn't apply to things you got later like cards deep in the track or achievements. Open a card on day 1, use it all expansion, then near the end of the expansion, reach the reward track level to get a golden version of it. Well, cool, you use it all expansion, you got reasonable value out of it, and the golden reward you got is cool as a cosmetic. That's the bucket Drek and Vann fell in. If you open one of them on day 1, great, you can use them starting on day 1. If you get to the end of the honor event by the end of the expansion, you'll get a golden one too. A nice cosmetic upgrade, or at least that was our thought process. In practice, Drek and Vann are much more desirable than the cards at the end of the reward track have been previously. Players have understandably felt like they should optimize this and do the honor quests first. Part of our hesitance in reacting to this has been not wanting to set a precedent that for every reward we make in the future, you need to be careful about the order you get them. They'll all effectively come with the wild card of a second card of the rarity too. Our goal here isn't to set that precedent. One might ask, why not just be generous? Well, we love to be generous. The AV reward track and event are the most free stuff we've ever done, but we want to do it intentionally. We'd rather put that value into planned rewards. Another reason we're doing this now is that we finally have a plan for how to solve this problem in a solid way in the future. No promises to when we'll get that implemented, but at least we no longer see this band-aid solution as being required forever. End thread, love you all. Well, isn't that nice? Appreciate the transparency, and they moved really fast. And they fixed it for everyone, except they cannot refund the time spent by the people that ground it out. But, I didn't do it. Personally, I think it's a reasonable sacrifice, but I guess we'll have to ask them.
Yeah, I think it's a worthy explanation. It sheds a bit of light, and we'll be looking to see what they end up implementing in the future to kind of solve this problem and not have, ideally, not have any of these type of threads at all, or not need to have them. More news that we have. There will not be any balance changes before Worlds. Worlds is coming up very, very soon. And
in 3 days.
Yeah, in 3 days. And obviously they wanted a bit more time to let the meta kind of figure itself out. We kind of had already discussed that there likely wouldn't be enough time for them to get a really firm idea what needs some touching up in terms of the card pool. So that means that Worlds is going to be under the current state of the game, which without me knowing a ton about it, sounds like it's honestly not that bad of a spot to be.
We were talking in the Discord about when was the last time there was a launch meta that was this balanced and had this many options. It's been a while. Darkmoon Fair Demon Hunter was better than this, and Highlander Hunter too. Like those were bigger outliers than what we have right now. We don't really have outliers right now. In HSR, the number one deck is I think 54-55%. And HSR numbers are usually pretty big. We think back to, I don't know if Stormwind had a broken deck, but it had a bunch of things that needed to not be the way that they were. Like, I think Paladin was pretty over the line. I know that Warlock was pretty far over the line. There was a lot going on, but they had to nerf within 2 weeks pretty quickly. But I don't know. Actually, don't remember. It might have been balanced, but like it was so fast. Really polarized.
That's also not to say that they won't end up changing something.
Yeah.
The week after, because they'll probably end up making some tweaks, but I don't think it's as egregious as it has been as of most of the sets recently. There seems to usually be a pretty heavy outlier that we see get some tweaks, and honestly, if they leave it like this for even a little longer than they have traditionally, I don't think it's seems to be weighing too much on the crowd. I mean, you would know if there's been a big outcry on social media, which there always is when there is a huge outlier, other than like I guess OwlTK would be like the only outlier that I see getting talked about, but it's nowhere near the level that I think it's been traditionally on set releases.
I think initially it seemed like, oh, this is going to be the thing. And for sure, Warlock is powerful. Of course, it is the old quest handlock that remains at the top of the rankings. But things sort of worked themselves out in terms of people adjusting accordingly, starting to play things to target, etc. I would not love having to play this through until January because everyone's on break. It'd be nice to get some balance after Worlds, but at the same time, like, they're going to be on break. So, this is definitely fine for that period of time, and much more so than I had anticipated. As you said, Hat, it's been so long since we've had something so balanced, particularly, I think, for 6th set.
Cat.
You know, I wasn't going to have to edit it out until you said something.
Cat. I'm waiting for the cat. Audio listeners, you can't see it, but in case you're curious, there is a cat. There it is. See the cat. All right. See, chat understands now. I had to say cat for them to know what it was.
It's also kind of crazy. I mean, I guess they already did a ton of nerfs to Warlock, where had those not have happened, we might have had more issues with the current state of like Owl, that specifically the OwlTK. But that deck just feels way slower than Quest Warlock was last expansion. When Quest Warlock came out, it just felt like you were always dead around turn 7 or 8.
Flesh Giant cost 8 mana, right? Like, that was how much that costs? Like, you would go Quest on 1, tap on 2, tap God on 3, tap Giant on 4, and that was those were all the cards you needed to do that?
Yeah, and now it just feels like OwlTK is like, okay, you get an idea that you know the end of the game is coming around turn 8 or 9. Like,
and also,
like,
if you just
play the Owl on turn 7, 8, or 9, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna die pretty soon after this. But before like last expansion, you were already dead by the time those turns came around, and so people just have more time.
Yeah, well, and if you want to beat Owl, people have figured it out, and the deck's gotten worse. You just play Vipers, and because the deck is a Rod deck, but they never have the time to wait to like Rod, coin, backfire, or whatever, and it doesn't even matter. It's not a full tick. They coin out the Rod, and then they pass, and then you Viper, and then they lose. And it's felt so much less terrifying to play against when I play decks with Vipers. It's just not that big of a deal. The Warlock removal suite is powerful. But yeah, it's the outcry that I've heard. The play pattern of Trog, I think, has gotten to people a little bit. Snowfall Guardian has started to pick up a little bit. And of course, there's some, there's always commentary about Warlock. Like that's we saw that coming. It's still there. The biggest thing that keeps coming up in a bunch of places is how bad Mage is as a class. And that's not where I expected the biggest concerns to be, but like the only remotely viable mage deck is Mozaki Mage, which feels just like it's another Encounter Slow deck. And Big Spell Mage is about as much of not a thing as it could possibly be. It's better than I think any Priest deck is right now, but Priest is actually like some people have been putting up good results with Quest Priest.
Quest Priest, Jesus.
It's kind of like, listen, if you want to beat a paladin, you shard them. They can't do anything about getting sharded. They can't do a thing. And you get to just like kill their stuff all game or take it or whatever. And Steve Wickedgood, he's running the Nameless one. Y'all ever Nameless one a Divine Shielded Tunnel Trog? Y'all ever do that? Because it's pretty. Oh, whew, whew.
Yeah, I think honestly part of what made Quest Priest have any shot is Xyrella as your 8 cost, because she doesn't get reduced by anything. So it's a thing you can run that it won't get reduced by your palm readings. And I saw something running Vanndar and I was confused what their 8 was going to be, and then I realized, oh yeah, Xyrella. So you get to have these reductions and still have your curve topper that will always be 8 mana to finish up the quest.
Yeah. Also, Spirit Guide is busted. Spirit Guide's so good. And Shard is a holy spell, so you often
It is.
You often will play Xyrella Hero and trigger the Spirit Guide and just draw the Shard. It's not hard to find the Shard quickly. Steve is even running Thrive in the Shadows over
What's
Wandmaker.
your other 8?
Xyrella.
Because you wouldn't have it by that time, right?
Moarg, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it runs double Moarg, Forge Fiend. But yeah, there are ways to make Quest Priest work, and like it's not embarrassing. You don't beat Garrote, but a lot of the decks in the format don't beat Garrote if they're piloted well. It's been something that I've seen a lot more as I've made pushes in higher legend. Apparently, it's something that hasn't trickled down to the rest of the ladder, but I don't know how long that'll last or if they'll change it. So yeah, I think this is a fine decision, and if they waited till January 3rd, it would be okay. Where there have been metas in the past where like you wouldn't want to do that, but also there have been a lot of Decembers where they nerf it and then go on break and they make it worse, including the last one where Evolve Shaman ruined Christmas. And you got to be real careful. We're going to talk about this in Decksplanations with the whole episode of Standard again. If you nerf not enough things right now and you leave the other stuff, it could easily get worse.
Yeah.
So we'll be on the lookout for that. We'll probably know next week if there are going to be any balance changes until the new year. But lastly, for news, we of course, Iksar's back. We have another AMA for this week. And some of the major topics we can go over, including one about battlegrounds and doing the old quit before the battle phase to gain extra shop time, mainly when you're playing pirates or any super APM heavy turn. They don't have a good solution for it because of how everything is coded. But if there are enough strategies in the future that gain a benefit by quitting, they might consider it a higher priority issue. But really all you have right now is like pirates and millhouse elementals, and probably not a ton else. There are definitely other APM heavy, but those are the major ones. The team has a new plan for revealing new Battlegrounds content, so I'm excited to see what patch are we on right now? 22?
Yeah, 22.0.
So 22.2, right?
Yes.
22.2 will be the next Battlegrounds content update.
Probably second week of January, something like that.
Yeah, middle of January, I would expect. So we'll see what they end up doing for that. They have some long-term teams are going to be formed for both Tavern Brawls and Mercenaries, so giving Tavern Brawls a bit more love, as they've kind of feel like they've been on the back burner for quite a while at this point. And then there is no current plans to make tradable an evergreen keyword, but they will reconsider it for core in 2023. So not this upcoming year, but the year after. I don't know that that tradable deserves to necessarily be an evergreen. Why don't we stop on this one? What do you two think? Has tradable been good enough for you two to think that tradable should become more of a mainstay, or do you think it's nice to just? It feels like a mechanic to me, at least, that kind of deserves to sit where it is, and the only reason to bring it back would be to do more special things, like with Doggy Biscuit, I think is the name of the card, and stuff like that. But I don't know that I'd necessarily want to have tradable be a evergreen. What do you think, Edelweiss?
I think it depends on how good you want tech cards to be. Because you throw tradable on a tech card and it's just immediately better. And it certainly is the kind of mechanic that is pretty kind of neutral in feel, right? I get the vibe they were going for in terms of the Stormwind marketplace thing, but I think in terms of the feel of playing it, it'll never feel out of place at any point, in my opinion. Like if you put it on a card here or there in various sets. But I just don't know if we always want tech cards to be that good, to just, oh, I don't need this right now, I'll throw it back. And yeah, it does kind of weird things. It's not that there's no cost to running them, but it sure feels a lot better to run Rustrot Viper than Ooze, right?
So, like, what if in core they put Viper instead of Ooze? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, fine. I think if I were looking at tradable, I would want fewer tradable cards than we have now, because there is a point where, like, there are decks that care about how many cards you draw on a turn or what kind of cards you draw. When I'm playing the Maestra Knoll deck, where I just want to draw as many non-rogue cards as many rogue cards as possible before playing my first rogue card, and I don't want to cast a spell, it runs double Viper and double Cutlass, and you keep any tradable in your opener and trade on one no matter what it is, or no matter what you're getting, just to discount Knoll. That's probably not great. It's a Final Showdown Quest Demon Hunter. You would tick quest through neophytes by just trading a lot. There should be probably fewer tradable cards, and I like narrow in scope. I don't even think it needs to be tech card specific, because I love cards like Overdraft or Provoke, they're just dead cards sometimes, but they're narrowly super cool, and I like that design space, but it's much harder to introduce that into a set in a way that feels organic. But I want it used as much as Dormant is used. Once in a while when it makes sense, right? Because Dormant it was all the Dormant minions and ashes, but also Sherazin, but also the Darkness, but also that weird one from Darkman Races, the pony, that Spellburst Bubble Dormant, Neralax, all these different things. I think, once every year or two, maybe a little more if it makes sense. Fine. I don't think it needs to be more than that.
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty reasonable.
What about this next thing?
And the next thing, Auto Squelch. Here is the quote. We've been split internally for a long time. At this point, there is enough internal positivity for it that's getting a pitch for exactly where it would exist and look like is just something we should look at and see if we like it. I feel like I did not say that correctly. It did not feel like it came out correctly, but they're looking at Auto Squelch. There's enough people inside that finally are coming around to at least to the idea of having it in game, that it's becoming more of a realistic possibility.
It's at this point, it's moved from no, this isn't right for us to if we did it, what would we do? That's real progress.
It's so funny. If we implemented the single button in the client that would automatically sculpt, I understand actually what they're trying to get here. That they don't want to just implement a button that auto sculptures all opponents. I understand that, but like in my vision of what it is it's just like I go into options, and then where all the checkboxes are, there's an extra checkbox that says automatically squelch opponents. And I would have that clicked.
If this was an episode of The Office, Dwight and Andy would have a huge fight about what exactly auto squelch means and what it would do in the client and how they would even make it happen. Michael would break them up, and then Jim would do a presentation that's just one checkbox. And he would look at the camera and then walk off, and then it would cut to the next scene. That's what would happen.
Hell, honestly, hide the checkbox. Make me work to get to it so that not everybody does it. I'm fine with that. You could put it in some random location. I will find the quiz. Like I will jump this. You know those steps the people went through to get like the super special card back? Like all the crazy stuff that you had to do to get the super special card back. I'll do it. I'll get it done to enable enable the button.
What if they hit it behind your opponent's portrait each game? What if they did that?
No.
No?
It's not the same.
Okay. But yes, I imagine the actual logistic question here is, do we make it permanent or time limited or per session or something? Because I'd guess that what they would implement is something that turns itself off at some point. Like it would be either for today or like maybe it's something. The full antisocial mode is when I'm appearing offline on BNet, squelch my opponent. That would be. I'd feel that. Anyways, I thought it was interesting that they were actually talking about it.
Yes, and it makes me happy. And for everybody that says that there's a Hearthstone deck tracker add-on that enables auto squelch, I'm aware that it exists. I do not use Hearthstone deck tracker, even though I should. And also, you cannot use Hearthstone deck tracker on an iPhone, which a larger portion of my games are being played on an iPhone because I play all my bricks at work. And so, yes, that is my counterpoint to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for the news. Was there anything else that you thought was worth talking about in the AMA, or should we jump into tournaments?
I think tournament sounds work. That works. Oh, wait,
Right,
I like the suggestion in the chat. Make it a neutral Battlecry Highlander card that auto-squelches. I like that idea.
Do you automatically draw it on turn 1 and get to play it before the game starts?
Okay.
Oh, no, they're saying it's a activates at start of game thing, I think.
It could be,
so I
yeah.
have to play 20. I have to play 29 cards. I'm down. I'll do it.
Yeah. Or like you make a neutral quest that like each phase is a number of emotes. There's something here. Yeah.
I don't mind
Anyways.
a greetings, by the way. I do not mind a greetings. I'm down to have all available emotes for the first 5 seconds of a game.
Okay.
You get 5 seconds. You can emote as much as you want. That's fine.
During the mulligan, maybe. Okay. Let's go to tournaments.
It's the grand tournament!
Yo, tournaments. Okay, so there's gonna be Worlds, and it's gonna be this weekend, and that's gonna be the thing. They're gonna announce. So this is going live Saturday and Sunday in American Pacific time at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. There are 8 players and 2 days of competition. all the casters that you know and love. There are drops. No choose your champion this year, but you still get drops for watching. And importantly, during Saturday on the 18th, after the second match, there's the 2022 program details for what Hearthstone Esports is going to look like next year will be made public. Pre-recorded interview with A-Bar, Alex Barhorst, A-Bar. He runs Hearthstone Esports. There's going to be conversation with him about what Hearthstone Esports looks like. So we're all very excited to see. And otherwise, I mean, there's not a lot going on right now. No qualifiers. We don't know when the next Master Tours are going to be. But we're going to find out within a few days. And next week's episode will be jam-packed with information. But for now, tune into Worlds this upcoming weekend. And check it out, some high-level play. I am on Team McBanterface, but there's 8 really great players. McBanterface, Frenetic, Glory, Nalgadon, Gabby, Possessi, Xiaobai, and Tianming. Really, really great group of players here. A lot of really strong contenders. So, yeah, that's tournaments.
Probably pulling for Nalgadon.
Yeah, he's great too. And I was going to talk about ladder
Gabby.
too. Oh, see, there we go. We got three different people we're rooting for. 3 different people. So we're going to. I was going to do a ladder thing here, but instead we're just going to make Decksplanations all about ladder and talk more about standard. So let's go do that.
So we kind of did the thing where we talked a lot about this stuff in Life and Ladder, but I guess that's kind of just the way it goes when Decksplanations is sort of how does the meta feel? And yeah, looking at HS replay stats right now, it's pretty interesting. I think we haven't seen something like this in a while. Like you mentioned, Mage and Priest are not super on the board, but we've got Quest Hand Warlock at the top, followed by Quest Warrior, then Libram Paladin, Face Hunter, and Quest Rogue, rounding out Tier 1. And then Tier 2, we have Owl TK Warlock, Freeze Shaman, Buff Paladin, Aggro Ellie Shaman, Death Rattle Demon Hunter, and then Garrote Rogue.
And this is last 3 days at Legend, at all Legend. If I sort by by top 1,000, it gets weirder. The number 1 deck at top 1,000 for the last 3 days is Poison Rogue. I assume it's due to the polarity of very specific matchups, particularly Garrote and the Warlock decks. But also there are an awful lot of Vipers out there. I wouldn't play Poison Rogue. If you look at last 7 days, it's still up there, but got sample size issues both in terms of the number of games we're looking at here and the specific field. And if you look at Diamond through Legend, Quest Warrior is actually number 1. Handlock, Libram, Quest Rogue, Face Hunter rounding out the top 5. If you look a little further down the list, you'll start to see some different stuff, but the top decks are a lot of things we've seen before.
Yeah, I mean, Quest Warrior was only picking up towards the end of last meta, but it has stuck around and certainly gotten a little bit better. I think just sort of being aggressive is pretty good right now, and it's an aggressive deck that is able to really keep the pressure on and kind of even blast out for the long game with Juggernaut sometimes. So it's a very persistent deck that can have very early starts. And then Quest Hand Warlock just still doing the same kind of thing, making huge swing turns for not very much mana. It's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Libram Paladin got a lot better with Trog. It was missing a second good 1-drop, and not only did it get a second good 1-drop, it got a 1-drop that can multiply your Librams, is crazy with Noble Mount, and just like really, really obnoxious to deal with. Trog plus Divine Shield is a nightmare if you're anything that is a little reliant on spells.
It also kind of got Cariel, who's also like a good card. You know, that the hero, the one that turns all the damage to you into half that much damage. Again, another reason to have Viper in your decks right now. And Stonehearth Vindicator deserves mentioning too. Like, it's just more draw, and often like Vindicator into Hand of Vidal is like the best Arcane Intellect ever. Like it throws in a free Ice Rager, just like you don't even have to pay for it, just free. So yeah, there's some decent stuff here. And I don't know, these decks, like, they're the same names we've seen before, and Quest Warrior is very similar, and Handlock is like, it's got a couple new cards, plays very similar. When you look at the Face Hunter deck, it's kind of still going through that evolution that was starting to happen at the end of Stormwind there, where this is a green Paladin deck. Like, Iron Deep Trog into Doggy Biscuit into Ramming Mount, like, the game is just kind of over. But that's not what I think of when I think of Face Hunter, and I've played it a bunch, and I die with buff cards in hand, and that's also not how I usually think of Face Hunter.
Yeah, I'm actually hit the point where if I'm the Shaman going up against a turn 1 Trog, and I just need to draw, I think I play the Wind Chill on 1, because at least out of Hunter and Paladin, I'm expecting buffs to come down. And it's better to give them an extra 1/2 now so that I can draw a card and maybe find the answer, than it is to worry about this Trog multiplying with buffs. Because you kind of absolutely cannot play spells once it gets buffed, but you have some flexibility while it's still a 1/2.
Yeah. There have been a few times where I've missequenced, I'm like, I'm dumb, but other times where, when it's just Trog as a 1/2, this is why I think I feel like Trog has started to see less play, because people were just jamming it in decks where it was a 1-mana 1/2 that would copy itself, and like, who cares? It just doesn't matter if it's a 1-mana 1/2 that copies itself. What matters is copying the buffs and the bubbles and all the whatever. And like, there was a game where I was playing Fel DH, which is, was against Face Hunter. It's a good matchup for me, but they went turn 1 Trog, so I went Coin Immolation Aura. All right, your stuff's still dead. It didn't matter. And there are ways to deal with that, but if they're big buff Trogs that copy each other, then that's spookier.
Yeah, and Doggy Biscuit makes it a 3/5, which on turn 2, a 3/5 that says, hey, you can't play spells, that's pretty intense. I mean, that's why you had to coin the Immolation Aura, because if they play that, even Fel Barrage won't be a clear. And Fel Barrage not being able to clear something on 2 is pretty absurd.
Yeah. And they would have 2 3/1s. Yeah, which would be a little spooky. However, I will say, the Fel DH deck runs Mage Hunter. For those unfamiliar that don't remember, it's a 3-mana 2/3 rush. Whenever it attacks a minion, silence it before this hits it. Very satisfying card to play right now. That same game, turn 1, coin deep, the Immolation Aura. They played something else, and then Adorable Infestation did. And I went Felfire Deadeye and killed the token. They ramming mounted the other one. Mage Hunted! And just eating the buff is very satisfying. So I strongly recommend playing with that card while you can. But yeah, you just kind of have to have an answer to Trog right now. But you look at the decks in the top here, they all mostly do. And it's not too hard to do. It might be limiting what you can play right now, but just guiding the shape of your removal. You just have to have something that can kill it early, or you have to have some minions that you can play. And this meta looks really board-centric right now, despite having a lot of from-hand power. Quest Handlock, a lot of removal, but it plays board. Scabs is good against it, so you know it's a board deck. Quest Warrior, it's Quest Warrior. Libram Paladin, it's Libram Paladin. Face Hunter, we just talked about board base, and Quest Rogue, it's good against other board decks because you can ignore buffs and Divine Shields. I've heard the rhetoric about the meta not being board base enough, and I've pushed back with the idea of, if Snowfall Guardian is a good card, it can't be because everyone's playing from hand, because you have to freeze something.
Yeah, 5-mana 3/3s are not very powerful traditionally.
Yeah.
I often end up hero powering against classes that don't have very many minions, even if it can be risky in certain instances, because if they are going to stick a bit, I then at least have some minions that I don't care about freezing to freeze with Snowfall Guardian, so it's like maybe at least a 5/5.
Yeah.
Still like
But-
my solution for Trog, by the way.
Summon
I
a
still
base
think
copy.
yeah, instead of instead of just increasing the mana cost, because I think you're still going to have the same bad feelings, and I still think that summoning a 1/2 is powerful in some of the decks that could just use another minion to stick buffs on. Like it would definitely be way worse in a deck like Libram Paladin, but even still, just like having it in the deck and them not being able to kill the buffed copy, even by the time they do that, if it like spits out another 1/2, that's still another thing they can just buff up again.
Yeah.
I have to say, I have mixed feelings about Trog, mostly because it's some of my most satisfying wins when I do beat it with the Shaman deck that I've been playing. Like, I have some tech cards at this point. I have a Hex, I have a Silence. But the games where you have to just figure it out, where it's like you're playing the minions that you have so that hopefully you can get some chip damage in, and they're trying to kill your minions so that you can't get that damage in or pop divine shields. It's like you start playing this mini game within the game of they're trying to keep Trog alive and you're trying to make it so it's easier to clear. Snowfall Guardian goes a long way for that, by the way, because you get to corrupt your stuff while freezing for a turn.
Sometimes you
it's
want to use
almost
Trog to board lock them. You can do that sometimes.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of like Scheherazade, Magic card that was like you play a separate game of Magic before getting back to your game of Magic. I feel like I'm playing this mini game of Hearthstone within the game that it's like, all right, how do we deal with this Trog? And then you deal with it and you sort of get back to the regular game. But also it would be nice to like not be completely blown out some of the time, which there are totally games where that happens too, where I just don't really have the answer and they keep piling on the buffs and I die very quickly.
Yeah. There's a situation that comes up playing against Trog that I really just don't like. It's called being on the coin, because then you're not anymore. And if you're playing Quest Rogue on the coin, well, I hope you have Cutlass, because otherwise you're dead now. And I, the window for agency is a little rough. But so here's the question. We asked this question earlier. We alluded to this. We can jump right to this now. Changes. It's way easier to mess up the format than it is to make it better. And if you take out Trog without changing anything else, then it is combo land, because this is what's holding back the spell decks. So I don't know how they can change it without nudging. Like, you'd have to hit a lot of different things, because if you don't pull it all back together, something's going to stick out. Because right now we have balance. You're pulling back play patterns. But, like, do we think they're going to pull back? Like, I'm trying to think of all the different cards. I don't think we need to pull back Counterslow. I think we're probably okay on Mozaki Mage right now. But Octobot for sure. Some Warlock stuff. Probably Rod and probably something else.
I mean, the reason to play Mozaki Mage is the other sort of combo decks anyways.
Yeah.
So if you nudge those back, then Mozaki kind of works itself out, because that deck does not like aggro.
No.
So I think if I were to think of 3 cards, it would be maybe Trog in some way, and then Ruined Mithril Rod and Efficient Octobot. Or maybe Ruined Mithril Rod and Field Contact.
So then it's the Bolner format.
Oh, so and maybe, as you say, push Guardian to 6.
Is that enough?
I mean, the thing is, the more
So
cards
we don't touch
you
Paladin.
change,
I guess we change Trog. Yeah.
yeah, the more cards you change, the harder it becomes to figure out how things are going to pan out because it's just more variables, and so it's difficult to pick winners and losers.
Are we gonna nerf until Quest Warrior is the best deck? I don't want that.
Please no.
I don't want
please
that to
don't,
happen.
Please.
I mean, that's the
just
thing. That
don't.
deck doesn't even run Trog, and it's very good against Trog because it's very good at dealing with the board without the use of spells. So-
Their opening is bad. The first 2 turns of playing Quest Warrior are spell on 1, 2 mana 2/2. That is their opening. That is what they're going to do the first 2 turns. On turn 3, they might have a 3/4 that lets you attack for 2, or they might not. But that's it. That's really all they got going on. So
yeah,
if you
Not
go,
the good Quest
guess
Warrior
it's sort of-
draws. The
No.
good Quest Warrior draws play 2 1-drops on turn 2.
well, okay,
And
those
then
are,
they
those
play
are the
their
nut
3
draws.
mana 3/4 and play the weapon, and you die. Or the
Yeah.
3/3 that the 3/3 that deals 4 damage when you attack, and then they play the weapon because they played 2 1-mana 2/2s. Those draws are gross.
I guess once the cannonballs start flying,
Yeah, you're in
they're
trouble.
pretty solid.
I also would very much like for Gorehowl and Smite to not be in the Juggernaut pool, please. Please
Yeah.
don't make me every time I pass the turn be like, I'm winning this game unless my opponent gets a Gorehowl and a Smite. Or or one or the other. And then I'm just like, well, alright. It's mostly the Smite. The Gorehowl's like one of those. I could see how the Gorehowl would be annoying for quite a few decks, but usually it's just the Smite because then they empty their hand and it's not 6 damage, it's 15 or like 13 to 15 damage, and then you're just dead, and you're like, well, I was going to win this game.
Yeah. See, I don't like. There's so many moving parts here that I would worry about messing something up if I were making adjustments here. So I'm looking at this list, and I don't know. I mean, I guess if Death Rattle Demon Hunter is one of the better strategies in the format, then that's fine. I don't know if it would be. And that's certainly not the future I envisioned, but that would involve. And we're not nerfing Face Hunter, I guess. Right? We can't really. It's maybe Doggy Biscuit can be +2/+2 because that does not need to have 3 health. Like, that does not need to happen. And
He is so much.
Whenever
It's
I
Do they
get
put
like,
that on Trog? Is that what they do now?
Yeah,
yeah.
Put that on a
that's-
Trog and then you die because you can't win.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's when you play against a draw that's like Anomaly Coin Infestation. It's a 3/4 on turn 1, and then they biscuit it, and it's a 5/8 on 2. Like, it's 8 health, turn 2. Okay, whatever. So it's, but I like, maybe you leave some of this stuff, maybe you don't. I don't know, because it's also okay if Quest Rogue stays good at a low play rate and it stays a good deck. Is that so bad? I don't know. If Face Hunter stays good, is that so bad? And would we
Missing off
buff?
this list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know Mage. What's the other
Yeah.
deck that I'm missing?
Class? Priest.
Oh. Yeah, they can have a break. We could have a break from the I don't know. That maybe this is probably not the overall sentiment, but like this meta just seems fine to have for a little while.
That's
and
where I'm at.
like I think you kind of just want to milk. If I'm in their shoes, the holidays are coming up. We're not in a really bad spot right now. Everything looks relatively balanced. There's not like as much complaining as there is usually. You kind of want to just take your wins when you get them, and then prepare for the next expansion, because more times than not, the next expansion's gonna just be rot.
Well, the mini set is like, it's not that far
Yeah.
off.
I don't know. I personally, I mean, I don't work for Hearthstone, and I don't think I ever will. But I would just take this W. This just feels like a W. Be like, all right, enjoy the holidays. The format's pretty close. We don't want to ruin the format by changing not enough stuff or changing too much stuff. just enjoy this, and hopefully, if this just happens to be a format you're not enjoying, the mini set will help some things. I don't know.
I want to touch on something as well. We mentioned a few cards that we might like to see changed. None of those were hero cards. Like, how do we all feel about the hero cards? I'm feeling pretty good about most of them, to be honest. I think the one that feels like a lot the turn you play it is Tamsin. It kind of does the most stuff all at once. But in general, they all just feel like solid.
It doesn't feel egregious. It feels good, but not like, oh, I can never win this game again. It's just like, oh, that was a very good effect for that card, but I usually don't feel out of the game. I could see them playing that card and getting 2 of their 3/3s right away and wiping my board, and that feeling pretty bad, but that just doesn't happen very often.
It's
to me.
The things that I feel like when they play something, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna lose now. It's not because of Scabs, it's because of Garrote. Because if they do that in Quest Rogue, I'm like, okay, I can deal with this. They're going to attack me with some minions. If they do that with Garrote, I'm like, oh, they're 10 cards ahead of me, and they just played Scabs and they have a free prep for the rest of the game. Yeah, probably going to lose. But, yeah, they don't feel... I don't know how they got it right, but they really did. There are a couple that... Reksham is saying in chat, and I agree with them. I'd buff before I nerfed this meta, which every other release that would have been wrong. Tavish and Dawngrasp are kind of underwhelming. Rokara is a little bit underwhelming, but like I've played with her, she's actually good. It's just mostly the other warrior cards. But the ones that are good, you could make Hero Tamsin cost 1 more, right? Like she could cost 7 and you still play her in every deck that she's in right now. Scabs is really, really good, but in Quest Rogue, he's not broken good. I think you can leave him. It's just, the purpose that he serves for Garrote is for evil, not for good. But it's looking at the hero cards, they haven't really gotten it this right in the past. They've either shot way over, way under. I guess Amazing Reno was actually pretty good. Zul'jin was good for 1 expansion. They messed up with Dr. Boom. And the
I don't know about Amazing Reno. That card might have been right on power level, but it did not feel like it when you played against it.
No.
But that was also due to probably Puzzle Box also being in that same set, and that did not have a great. It was one of those cards where, like, on paper, right? On paper, Amazing Reno was just fine, but the play experience was not just fine.
It was, yeah, a little too variant.
Regarding Dawngrasp, I think it's more that the deck that you want to play Dawngrasp in isn't very powerful, rather than Dawngrasp not being good enough. Because when you have managed to, stay alive and you're not worried about getting comboed down, which is hard to do right now. But, once you meet those conditions, the battle cry of replaying all those spells, quite effective when you've built around it. And that hero power is a win condition unto itself. It's not super hard to get scaling if you're willing to use the minions that are in your deck to upgrade it. And once you get it to 5 damage, you just start hitting face, and they're gonna die. And if you get to upgrade it even more than that, it's just kind of absurd. So I've really enjoyed the games that I've played with Magister Dawngrasp. It's just a matter of, I think we need, 1 or 2 more options in terms of the large spells that we're running. I'm not quite sure. Maybe the deck just needs a little more tuning. Things need to adjust a little bit more in favor. But I actually took a list from someone in our Discord, Rec, who made a very defensive version of Big Spell Mage, not even running a Rune of the Archmage, but sort of focused on building up armor and just playing to survive. And as long as you get Magister Dawngrasp early enough. I mean, this is always the trouble when your win condition is a hero card, is what if they're buried towards the bottom of your deck? But if you get Magister Dawngrasp early enough, then you just start ramping up that hero power, and you can control the game and close it out pretty effectively.
Yeah. I was thinking about what I would do for Big Spell Mage, and I have an idea that they probably tried and then specifically didn't do on purpose in testing. Deepwater Evoker, the 4-mana 3/4 that draws a spell, you gain armor equal to its cost. And Celestial Inkset, after you play 5 mana worth of spells, you reduce the cost of a random spell in your hand by 5. If both of those said highest cost, and not random, deck would be a lot more synergistic, because the issue with Inkset is that it's a slot machine. And sometimes you hit you have to play Big Spell Mage. Mage doesn't have minions that are worth playing. And a lot of your stuff is really synergistic based on density of spells. Mages like casting spells. That's what mages do. But that means you need small spells and big spells. So Big Spell Mage is a lottery that you gamble, and you don't win if you hit. You just lose if you miss. So finding a way to make that a little bit more controlled through a deck building restriction as opposed to variance in the actual game could be good. Or it could end up in a lot of turn 5 runes of the Archmage, which could be a little sketchy as far as play experiences go. But Deepwater Evoker is an awesome card. Really, really great. It can gain you a ton of armor. Inkset, I've played with Inkset. When it hits, it's really good. Maybe you only need to change one of those, but the fact that they're both... the question of whether or not your deck works is random, and the way to build it to guarantee it makes those cards suck. Inkset in particular, I think Inkset would be the one I'd hit, because it makes you play spells to discount spells, but if you're playing a bunch of small spells to trigger it, and then you hit other small spells, it doesn't even take Inkset anymore. It doesn't even work with itself. The first half doesn't work with the second half. Just hit the rune, hit the Iceblood Tower, I don't know, hit something. But as of right now, just the deck feels so internally opposed to itself that I think it's probably due for some adjustment up. That's the most obvious archetype where they made it really clear they were trying to do it, and then it was such a horrible failure.
Yeah, I think Inkset in particular, I messed with a lot, ran into the same issue you mentioned where I'd be reducing Siphon mana, and I was like, well darn, that was a miss. But it feels like that card almost, it doesn't want big spells. It wants you to run a lot of 5 mana spells.
Yes.
Spells that will exactly activate it and then discount other 5 mana spells so that you can have like a double turn where you play 2 5-cost spells. And because they've been going all the way on the scale in terms of big spells, there's just not a lot that you're doing on 5 mana. It's basically Apexis Blast and Arcane Overflow, I think it's called, which are good cards, but you do want some minions in the Big Spell Mage. And Arcane Overflow is just sort of, I don't know, not quite good enough for that deck. Arcane Overflow really wants a lot of spell damage to take full use of it. It's not like the most insane effect. I think what would really kind of make the deck way more viable would just be core set next year we get Dragon's Fire or
Dragon's Fury. Yeah, sure.
It immediately becomes way more playable.
Yeah. And
can you answer a question before we move on real quick? Yes. How does Reckless Apprentice work with Dawn Grasp? Does it snapshot?
So it always hits their face first.
Okay.
And then it goes from the left side of the board over. So if it kills a 1/1 on the left, then the rest of them are going to deal 3. And if it honor kills,
yeah.
Yep. If it honor kills at any point again, then it'll deal 5 for the rest of it. So it's super interesting in that way.
It's functionally equivalent then to just dragging the hero power, a bunch of 0-mana hero powers, and you ping, and then you ping left to right, like as though that the player was doing it. What would happen in between? Okay, and the animations take about that long too.
So you want to position in the opposite manner, then.
Right?
Yes,
but no one expects you to have Reckless Apprentice anyway, or be playing Mage. So
well, yeah,
yeah,
that's fair.
it's and I actually learned Grey Sage Parrot, the 8 mana 6/6 that recast the last spell that costs 5 or more, it cares about base cost, not what you actually paid, which I didn't know. A bunch of people apparently tried Potion of Illusion, and it didn't work because they thought of this. But that means if you ink set something and you discount it, hey, that'd be really cool. But you discount it and then play it on turn 5, and then you wait 3 turns to play your parrot. And you're dead. Because you waited 3 more turns to play an 8 mana 6/6. So, like, I don't know. And even if you clumsy courier on 7, the parrot doesn't replay the spell that you couriered. It's all just so internally competitive.
Well, and Courier, I think, shows another issue with the deck, which is that so many of the actually desirable big spells cost 7 mana anyways. Like, we're not actually going for the objective, or to some extent, not even Rune. I mean, Rune I still think is decent most of the time, but the best spells are just 7 mana. It's Mask of Cthulhu, Flame Strike, and Mass Polymorph. And in that case, Clumsy Courier is just a 4/4 in addition, and that's not that good.
I mean, yeah, the problem though is
It's
if
a
you discount,
4/5.
it's
Thank
a
you very
4/5.
much.
Okay.
It's a
sorry.
Yeti.
But even if you made it like a 5 mana 2/4, the problem that would happen is you would coin it out on turn 4, and it would cast Ice Blood Tower, and then your opponent is just playing against a broken version of the Shaman Caverns card, because the spells that they're casting every turn, instead of being essentially like what's 3 mana worth of a minion, they're just getting like 7 to 9 mana worth of value every turn for 3 turns.
But honestly, even that wouldn't be so absurd. The scariest thing would be Mask of Cthulhu. But
Yeah.
you could, to some extent, just be like, oh, I know what big spells are in your deck. Mask of Cthulhu, Mass Polymorph, and Flame Strike. And maybe Rune. All of those are good at clearing boards. I will not play anything for 3 turns until your tower is over, and then I'll still try and aggro you down. And you've
Probably
spent
play
3 cards
Deep
from your
Freeze
deck.
if you're doing that. I would guess you would
Also,
play
if
Deep
you
Freeze,
don't play
probably.
minions, and they have Mask of Cthulhu, I hope you like getting double Pyro Blasted, because that's kind of awkward.
I mean, that's why I said that's the best one they can get. But like, if you are able to sort of wait it out and keep playing threats, I think you could manage in that case, because they're forced to do the thing. And if they try and be proactive, it's going to be risky because they could mass polymorph their own stuff. So I'm just not high on the objective for Mage in general, because you really want to have large proactive spells, and the only one we have right now is the freeze one, which is kind of mediocre.
Well, I mean, I would say, like, if Clumsy Courier cost 5, this is like a crazy world. I don't want this to happen. But if it costs 5, I would just play Ice Blood Tower, Rune of the Archmage, Deep Freeze, and Mask of Cthulhu, and screw Flame Strike, screw Mass Polymorph. Like, you just don't... Like, you just put all the proactive... Like, those are the most proactive cards, right? In Big Spell Mage that you would have. And then
Yeah.
you just can play minions, I guess, as the rest of your stuff. Maybe you play Doggrass.
Sounds unexciting for both players, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, this sounds like
So,
Spiteful Mage, but, like, worse.
Courier seems like, I guess you could do 6, but the 6 is in that area where I think it's 6 and 7 feel very close to me, and 5 feels like a mile ahead of both of those. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm...
I mean,
thinking about
remember
it incorrectly.
Dragoncaster to 7 was an effective nerf to Dragoncaster. It's 6 is turn 5 on the coin. And it's, you got to be real careful about what you're cheating and when you're doing it in the game. Turn 6 or turn 7, just more stuff is online to deal with this. And earlier than that, it's often just kind of not. So, yeah. I don't know. I'd be curious about if they end up doing something for Big Spell Mage, if they even decide that now is the time for buffs, if they decide they would buff anything else. And Priest, I don't know what you do. I think the way to buff Priest is a nerf combo.
Yeah.
Priest can chill. I'm good. Priest can. As a person who has been called a priest main many times, Priest can be where it's at. I'm okay with it. Maybe Wicked Good is not as okay with it, but if people are winning games with Quest Priest, then it's fine. Don't need to. I don't need any nudges, right? I'm not about to ask for a nudge for Quest Priest to get better because I don't know that that's necessarily a game state I feel like playing against.
Yeah, me either.
We and there are some priest decks in tier 3-ish. There's a Vanndar priest, there's a Quest priest, there's Blessed Trog, like Miracle Priest, whatever. There are probably ways to make those better, but it just, again, we're looking at the same thing with Big Spell Mage, where if you push the wrong thing, then it just makes one really unpleasant part of the deck better, and it wins more games, but at what cost? You don't want to do that. So I don't know how they would push these strategies, or if I don't know if they can make Shadow Priest better. I don't know if that's a thing they can do. Yes, it's really difficult to see. It's Bodicus, I agree with you.
Warp back. Just give them time warp
no.
back. And...
Don't you put that evil on me. Don't you dare. She'd be so good in this meta. She would be ridiculous in this meta. Oh, man. Yeah, just wait for the second Rod Tick to go off. Turn 7, coin Elucia Owl go.
Oh, please no.
Yeah, I'm all set on that one. I'm all good. But I agree with you. Just take the win. Take the dub. Ride it out through the holidays. Just take it.
I think it's better than the other options. Because you're right. If they nerf something and ruin Christmas again, it's just like it's gonna look so bad.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I agree.
When you gotta win, you take it.
Hey, look, people shouldn't be playing Hearthstone on Christmas anyway. They should be eating Chinese and going to see a movie.
Please be kind to your concessionist. Well, y'all, I think we're gonna call it there. I just got a vision of my future flash before my eyes, but we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, coincede.com. You can find our content info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Run into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doshi, Cape, Ruby, One, Crush, Cap, B Squatch, David P, Snowpack, Lucky, Veda Black, Wild Lou, Itinerant Wizard, and Jeremy T. Coin Concedes. Let's go. Edelweiss.
Oh gosh. Coin Concede to everyone who reports on the latest and most creative scams that go around, because I recently encountered one on there's an app I use to find other like LGBT folks in the neighborhood to try and make friends, and I encountered someone. It seemed like they just wanted to talk, and then there were some weird things, and I'm like, this seems like a scam. And I Googled all the things that seemed scammy, and sure enough, it was a scam, like sort of a trust scam where they make you trust them and then ask you to do things. And I was like, gosh, I really hate this kind of stuff. But I'm happy I was able to catch it. I mean, those things, I always feel glad that I'm able to avoid them, but I know that there's people out there who are vulnerable and are not as adept at avoiding them. And yeah, scams suck a lot. So glad that the information is out there, and thank you everyone who, posts the, what to look out for online so that folks can Google it to double check. It's a very valuable resource. And then Coin Concede as well to my sister-in-law, who introduced me to, I'm gonna say this wrong, but it's a dish called, I think, chilaquiles, which is basically something that you make with leftover tortillas that would otherwise like go stale and be kind of gross. You use a lot of lime and salsa and make it into a really delicious dish. And she made me that for lunch earlier in the week, and that was fantastic.
Looks and sounds tasty.
Indeed.
Botticus. Quick seeds.
Coin Concede to Auto Squelch. Just the fact that they are considering it makes me happier. At least they're talking about it in a manner that means that it might be real, even though it might just end up getting debated in the end.
You might get tournament moded. You might get in the worked.
Yes. Yeah, but
yeah,
just happy that it's being discussed. And also, hopefully, they start discussing not reducing cards down to 0 mana. One day, baby steps.
Yeah, I think that one's going to take a little longer. Coin Concedes. So there's a match, a money match that Clark Hellscream has been running these money matches for charity, where the winner gets a donation to a charity of their choice. And it was suggested by the community that myself and my co-host Zacho, who is the chief editor of Vicious Syndicate, play each other. We agreed to play the worst archetype on ladder, so it is a big Spell Mage mirror match.
Oh no.
I don't know if we're playing the same list or not. If we're not, I'm totally taking Rex Shaman from the Discord. That he'll never expect it. And it's going to be cast by Envoy and Ray C, who are going to be doing the casting, which is awesome. So that's going to be, unfortunate timing, it's going to be Sunday during Worlds, because that's the only free day I have for the rest of the year, really. Because, Spider-Man into Christmas movies. But that's going to be Sunday at 3 o'clock Eastern over on Clark's channel. And it will be on YouTube, of course, if you want to catch up on it after and go, check out Clark's channel on YouTube and like and subscribe. He's into that sort of thing. Friends of mine have been really helpful for some advice or something I'm working on this week. So Drekthar, Celestalon, Alkali Lake, thank you so much for your help this week. Thank you to my co-host for being flexible. Thank you to my wife for putting up with me and also making bomb eggnog cookies. They're really good. They're really, really good. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. So, thank you, Edelweiss. Keep calm and be kind to your concessionists. And if you see us on ladder or at the movies, Coin Concede.
Coin Concede.
Coin Concede.
Oh, I gotta hit the button. All right. Stopping recording. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you tuning in. All right. I am going to take the stream.
How many times can I use you humming the outro as the post outro stinger?
Go for it. Save it. Go ahead. Layer it. Layer that. You can. But yeah, we're gonna go offline here. I have to go remote in and check the projection booth. Oh, it begins. It begins.
Sorry.
All right. Stream. We're taking down the stream. Talk to you later. Thanks all for tuning in on Wednesday.
Bye.